And my brother Adam called me one day and he's like, called Ezra and I, and he said, you guys, I found it. I'm up here in Grand Teton and these people are doing tours. We can do such a great job at this. We could just do such a great job. We're meant for this.
I'm talking today with Amber Peters. She's the owner of a wildlife touring company. It's called BrushBuck Wildlife Tours, based in Jackson. But if you watched the Super Bowl on Sunday, they had an ad that played, and Amber's here to tell us about that. Amber, thanks for talking to me today.
Hi, Rhett. How are you doing?
Good. So yeah, you guys had this 30-second ad that ran during the Super Bowl. What time did it air?
It aired at about 7:44 Mountain Standard Time, I believe, somewhere around there.
Okay, so kind of towards the end part of the game. I mean,
Yes. Yes, they told us it was going to run about an hour earlier, so everybody was having to wait. Everybody was on the edge of their seat waiting
yeah. And by the
that
way,
knew about it.
for people watching, we'll include the video, the ad in an article below this video, just so people can watch it. But, um, how did you end up getting a Super Bowl ad? Was that a deliberate choice, or was it by happenstance, or how did all that work out?
It was completely just out of the blue. Google contacted us in November and they said, we're interested in using your company to represent the state of Wyoming for this application that you guys use, that we use. We actually use it for patterning where wildlife is going to be moving through the parks. And it's kind of just a background application we happen to use. It's called Gemini for Workspace is what they call it. And they said, hey, you guys use this application and we want to put a focus on it and do some advertising. And we wanted to, it's between you and another company in Wyoming, and we wanted to focus on a company in each state. And so we did some preliminary questioning with them and interviewing, and they said, all right, we're going to choose BrushBuck to represent Wyoming. And they said, oh, and by the way, this may or may not happen, but we may be having a Super Bowl ad. So we were pretty excited about that. We weren't absolutely sure the Super Bowl ad was going to happen until January. And we had to keep it under wraps and couldn't tell anybody really. So when it
Yeah.
happened, it was pretty exciting.
Have you had has that ad had any impact for your company? Have you had,
Yes, we've had a couple reality TV shows already contact us, and a lot of news stations have contacted us just to kind of ask about kind of what we're talking about here. How did that happen? And yeah, so we've had some interest, and that's pretty interesting for
nice.
us.
So there might be some potential additional coverage for your
Yes.
in the future.
The Kardashians of Yellowstone.
Right, right. Well, so like you mentioned, your company is called BrushBuck Wildlife Tours, so it's a touring company. You guys actually give tours of wildlife throughout the Jackson area. Do you cover West Yellowstone as well, Island Park?
Yes, we do. So we're based out of Jackson, and we do tours year round in Grand Teton and Yellowstone. We offer tours out of Bozeman in the winter to go see the wolf viewing. That's the best time of year to see. The best time of the year to see wolves is in wintertime right now because it's their breeding season. So that's a very popular tour. And then crazy summer tours. That's our real busy season. Lots of tours down in the Tetons and down in Yellowstone, or up in Yellowstone as well.
Oh,
We do tours also around the world, so Alaska and Africa as well.
oh, you do? Okay.
Yes,
So you get people literally from all over the world. Uh,
yes,
what's the,
everywhere.
I mean, what's the most unique place you've had a client come from?
Ooh, that's a good question. We, I would say the most unique are the people that we meet, like in the Masai Mara. Um, as far as where people come from, to come to us, they usually have I mean, especially if they're coming internationally, they have a lot of money. So, we get a lot of New Zealand and Australian customers. So I would say they're pretty interesting because they're so far away. They enjoy seeing the American wildlife. Especially, I mean, the people that I've personally toured from New Zealand were more excited to see a squirrel than a bear, which is really really interesting. But they love our American wildlife in especially in New Zealand. They just can't believe how big it is. So yeah,
What?
from everywhere.
So, yeah, wow, that's interesting. So there's lots of people who find the squirrel more interesting than the bear.
You never know. You think that the big three that we always tell our sales staff is like, bears, wolves, and moose. Everybody wants to see that. But then you get the people from other countries and they don't really care about that. They want to see a squirrel. And I had the person say, stop the car. There's a squirrel. I thought we were going to hit something. And it was no, she'd seen a squirrel running up the tree. So I'm like, okay, hey, it's great. I love squirrels. They're great too. Let's talk about
Yeah,
them.
that's funny. Every year there's a story about people, some tourist from somewhere that, loves to see the bison in Yellowstone Park.
Yes.
In fact, a story 5 or 10 years ago about someone who actually picked up a bison calf and put it in the back of their van, which is a big,
Yes.
that's a whole other controversy that lots of people argue about. But I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned the squirrel and how this person loved the squirrel over the bear, what are the most popular animals that people like to see?
Well, and that's a really good question. And when Americans usually want to see grizzly bears, they'll take a black bear, but they really want a grizzly bear. Moose and wolves. Those are like the top three that they want to see. So we explain to them when they are purchasing a tour, what their chances are of seeing them, depending upon what's going on with the wildlife at that time of year, migration or hibernation or breeding seasons and whatnot. So we always are real sure to go over that with a guest and manage their expectations is what we tell them. But once we get a lot of return customers, and once they've seen so many bears and so many wolves with us, we get a lot of them, just like you just mentioned. They say their favorite animal is it's a bison, or they really start to appreciate, the smaller fauna. So, and that's the beauty of it for the guides, for the employees, is you just never get sick of it because you're just seeing something new and you appreciate a different animal all the time, and bison in particular are just amazing. They're just they do every season magically. You see the pictures come out of winter of the bison coming out of the steam. They just know how to do it.
Yeah.
So there's something magical in these animals that live here in the Yellowstone ecosystem, particularly.
BrushBuck Wildlife Tours, it's been around for close to 20 years now.
Yes, sir.
I,
Yep.
I had never heard of it until you had reached out, but this started about 2006. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
So tell me the story of like, why did you start this company and how did it get started? What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, so my brother Adam and my husband Ezra, we were all in the military. I was in the Navy. My husband Ezra was in the Navy, and then my brother Adam was in the Marines. And we had I think it was about 2001. Adam was about to go off to war, and Ezra and I were still in. Ezra was about to get out of the military. And we all got together and we were deciding on possibly doing a business. We didn't know what business, but we knew we wanted to be outdoors. So we all sat together in this omelet factory in California where we were all stationed at the time. And we said, we don't know what we want to do. We're going to save our money and we're going to read about business. And we're just going to keep our eyes open for something outdoors. And so I was the last one to get out of the military. And my brother Adam called me one day and he's like, called Ezra and I, and he said, you guys, I found it. I'm up here in Grand Teton and these people are doing tours. We can do such a great job at this. We could just do such a great job. We're meant for this. And before I had even ever been to Yellowstone, we said, let's do it. So I was selling tours for people to come to Yellowstone before I had ever even been up to Yellowstone myself, because I've done sales my whole life. Excuse me. So I was looking up what you see in Yellowstone to sell the tours. I'm like, oh, you're going to see Old Faithful and you're going to see the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. You're going to see all this wildlife. But Adam and I grew up in Arizona and on a ranch. So we're used to animals. And if we grew up hunting, we grew up wildlife viewing and loving wildlife. So if you know how to find animals, you can find them anywhere in the world. So, and that's what we've done. So we came up here, fresh out of the military, just three kids. We had a baby at the time, Ezra and I, and it was really scary. We all lived together and started this company, no insurance, no anything. And we just hit the ground running and we just made it happen.
What makes your touring company different from others? Like, because you said you guys could do this so much better. So
Yeah.
what approach do you take that's different?
Well, and that's one of the things we said, let's find out how we can do this better. We went around and we asked the concierge locally, what are things that you feel could be better? And one of the big things was that tour companies would maybe or maybe not show up. If they did, it would be late often. There, we basically introduced wearing uniforms to all of the guides up here. So now you see all the guide companies wearing uniforms. Nobody wore uniforms until BrushBuck came up here. And that's straight from the military. It streamlines your company. And it was obvious to us. You had people just showing up in like ripped shirts and just unkempt. So coming from the military, that was an easy one. Showing up on time, being dependable. A big one, though, specifically is our guide training program. Because we grew up in the outdoors, we know how to hunt. We know how to, just be in the outdoors. So we trained our guides basically. And once again, my brother was in the Marines, so he put our guides through what is kind of like sniper training, but with binoculars. So he would take part of that training is you hide some whatever. He would take one of my kids' toys and hide them in a 100-yard area, and the guides would have to find those, and those little tiny toys and with their binoculars, which in the military would have been a gun, but for us it was binoculars, and they get prizes for winning and finding those little tiny things. And before you know it, you can do a full tour while driving, and the animals pop out to you like magic because your eyes are now trained to find those animals in their environment. And so you'll hear that. We hear it all the time. I don't know how the guide can be talking about human history or, all the millions of things we talk about on tour. And they're like, oh, over there's a grizzly bear. And they're like, how do you see that? It's because we've trained them and they're trained constantly. And that's another thing that we took from the military is you're never fully trained. Nobody is ever fully trained. So every year, all the guides have to go through training. Some of them are the leaders of the training now, but they're constantly getting training. And that includes for the owners is you're never, ever, ever fully trained. The wildlife's changing. The politics are changing. Everything, the, environment is changing. And so we keep everybody on staff up to date on that. And that's another thing we took from the military is you're never fully trained. And in the military you're always ready for war because you're never fully trained. And for us, we're always ready to show people the most and the most up to date. Yeah, they don't hear stuff from that's invalid now from when we started almost 20 years ago. They hear what's up to date now, and they see what's up to date now.
Yeah, I see. So when you take people on a tour, are they on like a little bus, or do you guys have your own little carts, or like
Yeah.
what's the mode to take?
So it depends on the size of the group. Here in the Yellowstone ecosystem, we are in the winter, we're in enclosed, heated, and air conditioned either Suburbans or larger like transit vehicles that are like 14 passengers, depending upon the size of the group. In the summer, though, we also introduced this open style safari vehicle. And when we were doing tours in Africa, we said, that's the way you do tours in Africa. You're in an open style safari vehicle. We said, we have to take this to the Tetons. We have to. And it's just such an experience because in the summertime, we run that. We have vehicles made that are specifically like the ones we run in Africa. And you would think we're up here in the Rockies, an open vehicle, it's cold, but in the summer, Most days it's not. And it's just magical because you're hitting all the senses, which is what a customer gets in Africa. You're smelling that bison as it's walking by instead of just seeing it, and it's amazing when you're breathing the same air and it just changes the whole experience for guests. And we take those on and off. We take those on dirt roads and on main paved highways. And then now some customers, that's not the way they want to travel. So we go also in the enclosed air conditioned as well for the Tetons, if the customer likes that. And
So
that's their choice.
yeah, this time of year in the wintertime, what wildlife are out there for people to see?
Oh yeah. So the main event right now is the wolf viewing because they're in the height of their season right now. The month of February, end of January through the first part of March. So that's a really nice time of year for anybody wanting to see wolves. Um, Moose are extremely active right now. The bull moose are most of them are in their bachelor herd, so we'll see. It's not uncommon to see 10, 15 moose at a time, even on a Teton 4-hour tour. So, um, the cows are out, of course, of the moose. Bison move in and out, but they're definitely active in the winter. Coyotes, bald eagles. Of course, the bighorn sheep are in the area in the Tetons. Um, excuse me. And of course, we have the elk refuge. So lots of elk viewing.
Amber, this is great to learn about this company. If people want to take a tour or learn more, where can they go to book a tour or visit a website or something?
Thank you. So our website is www.brushbucktours.com, and that tours is plural with an S on the end. Um, and then our number is 888-282-5868. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram. Just look up Brushbuck Wildlife Tours. Um, and that's, we're active. So if you want to email us or message us, we get right back to you, or call us. We have office staff 7 days a week.